Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the What Moves Her podcast. And I have to tell you, I'm very excited today to have a chat with a person that is a colleague. I consider her to be a friend. She is a teacher. She gives tremendously in everything that she does. And I'm so glad, Tommie Wehrle, that we are able to talk today. We're going to have an incredible conversation. Welcome, my friend, to the podcast.
Oh, wow. I just teared up because I do consider you a friend, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. I've been inspired by you, but I've also been moved by our partnership and your willingness to support my community. So thank you.
Thank you. And so let's dive right in and talk about your community, which is the LGBTQ community. I have been a long-term ally, but you, Tommie, are much, much more. So why don't you share a little bit about your story, personal and professional, and then we'll start talking about what people can do to support in the future and all of the great work that you've done as well. So I turn it over to you.
Oh, well, thanks. My story starts with my parents, obviously, for obvious reasons, but also because my father and my grandfather were in politics. And we would have these Sunday dinners, and there would be my Aunt Donnelly, who would probably have been Bernie Sanders' campaign manager. And then there would be my Uncle Jack, which we always, underlined by marriage because he would have been the far right. And we had these conversations at the table on Sunday, and people would argue different viewpoints and different beliefs. And at the end of each meal, though, everybody left as friends. And I knew that the importance of speaking up and speaking out was critical. So I first started speaking up and speaking out on behalf of Humpback Whales. That was my high school project, right? And then I came to realize through my high school relationships and all into college that I was part of the LGBTQ plus community. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with this gentleman who told me the only way we're going to understand your community is if people come out because you're a mystery to us. So I guess it was back in 1989, I think it was, that I started to come out. I came out to my parents. I came out to other people. And I've been coming out ever since because it's just part of being part of the LGBTQ plus community.
You never stop.
No, it doesn't stop. You're always coming out.
Yes.
And I had my first activism when, you might not know this, but I love long gowns. So somebody can, what?
I did not know this about you.
I know. I have about 12 of them in a box in a closet in there. I can't fit in them, but I have them still. But somebody came to me and said, would you co-chair a black tie dinner to raise money for HRC? So I said yes, because they told me I could wear a long dress. So I'd like to say that I was, because I marched on Washington and but no, it was because someone said, you can wear a long gown. Now, that was my first yes. But then I realized really what the purpose of our organization was, because HRC is the largest gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender lobbying group in the country, that this was our way of raising money so that we would have a voice at a table we didn't have a voice just yet at. And so I was the first dinner co-chair. And at that dinner, I said, we're not asking for special rights, we're asking for equal rights. And the columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch misquoted me on purpose. One, because my dad and I had the same name, I'm named after him, but also because he didn't want anything to happen to me. This is probably back in 1991 or 92 at this time. And so he misquoted me by saying, I said, they aren't asking for special rights, they are just asking for equal rights. And my dad had that column made to a plaque that I have on my wall. And he gave it to me. It was cool because he gave it to me and he goes, I want you to know that at one point in time, you're going to realize how far you came. Sorry.
That
Who
is,
knew?
that's a great story that I did not know any of, and it really got you started on your journey for
Yeah.
LGBTQ rights and equality and all of that. And I want to talk about the Realogy slash Anywhere ERG that you were so involved in. But before we do that, let's take a look at your business background because it is varied. I mean, you are in our learning group now teaching agents, but there's more that many people don't know. So take a step back into the brokerage end of things.
Yeah, I back around the same time I was the dinner co-chair, started participating with HRC. I fell in love with somebody who was part of the Better Homes and Gardens real estate brand in St. Louis, and got my real estate license. And after 5 months of having my real estate license, we bought a franchise with a competitor. And 2 months later, we opened a franchise. So for the very first 20 years or so, or up to about 20 years, I was a franchise owner, and I also sold real estate. Then I sold that interest and came out here to Connecticut. I was married at the time. Came out here to Connecticut and dabbled with a couple of different brokerages. Ended up at the Coldwell Banker office here in Milford, Connecticut. And one day somebody said to me, "Why don't you apply for the instructor position? Because you're always training people here." So I did, and I became an instructor for Coldwell Banker and the agents for the Connecticut Westchester region. And and it was in person. I traveled to a office in the middle of Connecticut, and I used to tell my origin story that, my very first day of real estate, I was in Sweat Hogs training, and I went over to my former partner and I said, "I think I'm in the wrong place." And then I told a little bit more about that story. Apparently, there were some agents that were in that class that were offended that I referenced my former partner. And so I got a phone call from my manager saying there was a complaint about me. And I go, "What'd I do? I just started." And they said, "Well, you're talking about your sexual orientation." I go, "No, I wasn't. I'm single. I don't have anything to talk about." And then we realized it was just that little piece. And honestly, Sherry, I almost quit.
Yeah.
And
Well, you did.
because I
You did not quit, though.
Well, I actually looked up on the website and to Realogy's website, and I saw all the ERGs, and I saw the LGBTQ plus Real Pride ERG, and I reached out to them. And it's because I saw that on the website that we actually are supportive of the LGBTQ plus community. I didn't quit. And in fact, I got involved in the ERG. So that's how I transferred from there over to as instructor. And then for the last 6 months, I'm accountable for working with the franchise owners of Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate.
I know.
Something that you're familiar with.
Well, that made me very happy when you moved over to the BHGRE world. And, that brand is a very welcoming and inclusive brand, as you know. So I hope you found your home. But let's talk about, Anywhere, which those days was Realogy. Let's talk about the ERGs because I've been with the company over 19 years, and it's one of the things that I absolutely love. One of many. Being, affiliated with Anywhere is that inclusiveness, and the culture is incredible. And so we first met when I volunteered to be an executive sponsor for the LGBTQ plus ERG, and you were very active. I think you were either incoming chair or co-chair, and we started working together, and we accomplished a lot. And do you remember those days and some of the things that took place that, were really groundbreaking to me?
Well, they were, and it would be so great to be on meetings with you because we would propose something, and then there would be that moment of silence, and you'd go, "Is she going to go for it or not?" And then you go, "Okay, we're going to do that." I'll reach out to who I need to reach out to in order to have that happen. So some of the things that we did, which was really great, groundbreaking, is if you remember, there were laws being passed in Florida about, I can't remember what it's called, which is funny that I can't remember, but you couldn't say gay in the classroom
Yes,
and
yes. Yeah.
discriminate. And so I came up with the idea of let's have sessions called When Hate Becomes Law, and have a candid conversation about not only those laws that are happening in Florida, but by the time we launched our first session, they were happening in Texas. But what's that impact on the kids? And so the first session we had somebody from HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, their in-council attorney, as well as somebody from, I think, the Yale Pediatrics group who deals with trans children and trans families. And they really did an amazing job of letting us know how important it is for a child to have someone to reach out to. Just one adult can prevent a teen suicide. And then from there, we did a few others. We had Dr. Sharon Yote, and a Coal banker agent here in Connecticut who has a trans son. And Dr. Yote spearheaded that trans center in Washington University in St. Louis, which unfortunately had to close because of the new laws that were passed in Missouri. And we started launching our first pronoun trainings that we had for all the employees, and ally trainings that we had. And then we had, one of the most amazing sessions that we had was when we had that Pride event, and a former CEO who has a trans child spoke about their child. And then you taught about not just business things, but you talked from your heart about what it was like to be an ally and where that actually was rooted from. And so we had some really authentic, groundbreaking conversations where, and you might not know this, we had an employee in California finally tell their friends and family that their child was trans. They were afraid to tell anybody in their family until they were on one of our calls. We had an employee with Cardis in India reach out for support. And we had another agent in Ohio reach out for support. So it's those connections, and the list goes long about different employees that we've connected with that felt alone. And even though we have a very inclusive environment and we always support all the positive legislation for equality with the LGBTQ plus community, it's not the same until you hear the stories.
Exactly. And, it's those stories you can read, you can talk at a higher level about it, but actually hearing the stories just brings it all home, because we're all human beings. And in fact, one of my closest friends is a beautiful transgender woman who's amazing. And some of the things that she's had to go through in her life, not anymore, thankfully, just horrifying. And so that period of time was just so eye-opening for many. And I know that you've stepped down from that role now, and others have taken it on, but you've stepped into something that's equally, if not more important, and that is the LGBTQ Alliance. And I was so excited when I found out that you, first of all, are on the board. Secondly, you will be the incoming president in 2026. And so tell us a little bit about what you want to accomplish there, because that is the group that is nationwide for all realtors, allies, and the LGBTQ community. And so there's so much work that can be done. So Tommie, what are you going to do?
What they're going to do? Any kind of pre-planning. Like, I have things in mind that I want to do. But, within the LGBTQ plus community, all those letters stand for a different group of people. And even those groups have subsets. So we're all allies of one another. And so it's up to us to keep our eye on each and every person, so that we're all very well taken care of, and that nothing gets taken away, like our rights to live or to work, etc. So the Alliance is only 4 years old, first of all, and it already has a voice at the table. It's an organization that's been reached out by senators and congresspeople to find out what is our viewpoint with regards to housing. We had a tracker. It's called the RPAC tracker that you can go on the Alliance website, and it actually lets you see, if you pull up a state, all the legislation that is either being submitted, suggested, or getting voted on that's anti-LGBTQ plus. So to continue that kind of work is what I want to do. I'm committed that people be trained to be leaders in their community, that we're not just doing what we do in terms of buying and selling homes or financing homes or providing title insurance. I think we're one of the most generous groups out there, realtors are, and we have federal fair housing, we have the Realtor Code of Ethics, so why not internally train and develop all of our members to be advocates and leaders in their communities, no matter what the issue is. Like,
Yes.
I don't want to be any more vocal about the LGBTQ plus community any more than I would be vocal about the Black community or the Hispanic community or the Asian Pacific Islander community, that we're all allies and we're all part of that. So to continue to be a voice that HRC can reach out to, that people in public office can reach out to as a resource, so that we really do, because the mission is to end housing discrimination. And
Yes, it is.
that's really what, it lights me up, is to have everybody be able to feel safe where they live, no matter whether they're renting or they're buying, and be able to have access to be able to buy if they want to buy. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest issues for many years. And in fact, when I was at Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, we did a consumer survey around that, and we surveyed across the country the LGBTQ community to find out, whether they did in fact feel comfortable buying real estate. And the answer, unfortunately, came back in many cases no. And one of the things, and this was 7 or 8 years ago, it was during a time where, after gay marriage was legalized and new family formations were taking place at a more rapid rate. We wanted to find out, are these new families able to buy homes? And so it's really one of the most important issues. And I'm glad that it's first and foremost in your mind as well.
Yeah, there are people that are leaving states because of the laws. So it's not only that they can buy houses, but that they can live in a place that's safe. We had, I think it was 12% of the relocations, whether it was last year or the year before last, were people fleeing the states. And we did have on one of our When Hate Becomes Law, a parent of somebody in Texas who packed up her kids and got in a car and drove to her sister's house in Connecticut. And now they reside somewhere in Illinois. So it's being able to purchase property, but also feeling safe in the neighborhoods that you purchase property where you want to end up living. So yeah, it is pretty big, bold mission that we have to be, because look, if we can make sure that there's no housing discrimination within the LGBTQ plus community, that is going to, it will seep into all other groups of people. Because we're all other groups of people, right? So it couldn't help but impact the Black community or the Hispanic community or Asian Pacific Islander community or whichever community you're a part of, is that it will hopefully end housing discrimination for everyone. But Sherry, I think people should know what you did, because Anywhere was the first real estate company that supported the Equality Act back in 2017. And then called other real estate companies and said, y'all should come in and sign this with us, and had been a proponent of the Equality Act since then. But you yourself have been out there on the front lines, having to stand up for our community, even in a business sense. And I don't know if you want to tell anybody, but you're a brave hero for us.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And this podcast is about you, Tommie. So another time I'll share that. And actually, we're coming to a close, but I want to ask you, and thank you for that recognition. I truly appreciate you and it. What is one piece of advice? This is my last question to you as we wrap. that you would give to allies or the LGBTQ community to, just up their leadership game? What's one piece of advice?
From an ally standpoint, I would suggest that you take time to get to know somebody who's LGBTQ plus, and not just assume, like me, for example, I'm white and I'm a female, and it may give me some privilege, but if people don't find out what has happened in my lifetime, or the fears that I have, or the concerns that I have, then you may think, well, everything's fine with her, or them, they, or he, she, or he, him. So have a conversation. Learn pronouns. My pronouns are she, her. I've been saying my pronouns all my life because I'm named after my dad, and for some reason I always have to say this is she. But for people, that is who they are. So take the time to learn language, because that's all it is language. But really find out what anybody who's not like you is like, and then find out more about them. Like, what else are you besides, white and gay? I'm Jewish, I'm Cherokee, I am, there's a lot that people have within the layers that we have in with one another. And then as far as the LGBTQ plus community is to give people grace. When you come out, give them the opportunity to ask questions, to be curious. You be curious with them. It's an opportunity for people to learn about one another. And we can't force ourselves on anyone, no different than we want someone to force themselves on us, right? So give people grace.
I love that. And, that's a great parting comment and a great piece of advice. And Tommie Wehrle, thank you for everything that you do. And thank you for sharing your story and much, much more today.
Thank you. I love being with you any opportunity I get a chance to. So thanks so much, Sherry. And thanks for all that you do on behalf of our community.